The Digital Success Plan has the purpose to enhance, transform, and inspire. And to do that, we will hope to develop a blended and connected ecosystem, as I described before, and culture that support inspirational teaching and transformational learning for all. The university ambitions that are listed in the strategic plan are engaging every student in a life-changing experience, meet changing demands, and inspire our staff community to be creative and bold. And that's particularly relevant to the enABLe process, pushing the boundaries a little bit of what our teaching practices look like, explore areas of teaching that maybe we haven't explored before, share those with colleagues, identify practices from our colleagues that we want to embed into our own, and take a few risks, and really take a few risks to see whether we can we can make our practices really more cutting edge and more student-centered. The institutional imperatives that we've got in mind for today, out of the 4 that Harriet mentioned, we have pursue educational excellence, improve student experience, and reduce variation in outcomes, and rapidly improve graduate employment. Those are the 2 that relate particularly to the enABLe process. The first one, reverse the ongoing decline, is certainly a part of the result that we hope will come out of redesigning courses, redesigning modules, and tweaking our teaching practices. The Digital Success Plan is built around the 6 Ps, which are listed there. So bottom up, we've got pedagogy for participation, and that's where blended and connected appears. And that's actually the only reference in the 6 Ps to the word digital. Principles for practice, and that's where we have inclusion, risk friendliness, evidence-based, and driven by our hallmarks and efficient. Place our physical and virtual campuses, partnerships with students, with a view to embedding our student partnerships in most of what we do, if possible in all of what we do. And the last 2 are portfolio, which is what's the subject of the review at the moment, and the graduate outcomes prospect, graduates for life, graduates set for life. And that constitutes in this plan the Portsmouth experience. As you can see, the diagram shows a bit of a funnel into the Portsmouth experience. The hope is that we can replicate that funnel on the right-hand side with the IS, wider IS ecosystem that will feed into the same Portsmouth experience. A few principles that guided the elaboration of the plan were those 5, and I understand some of those might be familiar to you, might have seen them before, others not, but if we go through them, the first one, a successful learning experience hinges on good design, which is what enABLe is about, and successful, good, student-centered teaching practice. The second one comes from the quote, in order to write well, you've got to rewrite. Well, to design for effective learning, we need to redesign. The third one is about engagement, and you will have noted in the literature it's remarkably difficult to find a satisfactory definition for learner engagement. What we're saying here is that a key driver for successful learner engagement is tutor engagement. So visible, active, and engaged tutors generate visible active and engaged learners. And that is particularly true when you have significant elements of our provision which occur outside the classroom, particularly online. We need to remain as tutors visible, active, and engaged ourselves if we want our learners to do likewise. The fourth one is the notion of context over content, and the key rationale for that is not bombarding students with more and more and more content, not ask them just to read this, watch that, and come back with 3 key points. We need to do more than that. What matters is what students and tutors do with that content, why they do it, how they do it, and who they do it with. And the fifth one is about high quality design and teaching practices as drivers for meaningful and purposeful digital technology adoption. And that's the only reference, again, to digital that we've got here. What we're saying is, in one word, let's teach well. Technology will help us to teach well, but let's focus on high quality teaching first. What we often say in relation to the last bullet point is the notion of teaching as a unique, irreplicable act is quite different from the notion of content delivery. In other words, those who can teach, those who cannot deliver content, and that is central to the teaching profession as such, and that's what makes teaching such a unique, such an exciting, and such an extraordinary profession for us. The aims of the plan are listed here. The first one is realizing the notion and the concept of blended and connected learning as our identity at Portsmouth. And that is precisely, A1 is where enABLe fits. That is our focus today. Aim 2 is about assessment, closely linked to the above, and that A2 relates to assessment choice, reviewing our reliance on examinations, or indeed review our reliance on the big 5 assessment types, exams, presentations, portfolios, essays, assignments, and overall review our position in relation to the role that assessment plays in our design. Aim 3 is an increase in our online provision, and that involves our own provision internally as a university, as well as portfolios of courses that we currently run in partnership with others. Aim number 4 is the provision of digital learning opportunities of an interdisciplinary nature. And that relates to, for example, additional standalone credit-bearing online modules for new entrants. That's 3 of those are in development as we speak. The last aim relates to learning analytics as a tool to address engagement, retention, progression, and completion. A lot of work is being done on that, particularly as regards the dashboards that we have in place, and we are as well exploring alternatives to those, and indeed a transition in future from learning analytics to predictive analytics. The digital plan in what I've described so far aligns with a number of things that are going on in the university. As Harriet said before, the annual monitor and portfolio review, and the forthcoming IS ecosystem master plan. But it also aligns with three key major initiatives from the university, namely the London campus, the medical school, and the Victoria Park building. What is then enABLe and how it fits? Well, in one line, enABLe is a team-based approach to learning design. It has a range of features that Harriet went through. I stress the fact that the enABLe process is actually a lot of fun. It's exciting. It's really a buzz to have an academic team and other stakeholders, potentially students and employers, in the room at the same time doing very in-depth work into the design of courses and modules. And the other one from that list that I usually highlight is scalable. It's hard to think how we can make this work at scale for all courses and modules across the university. It took my previous institution 5 years to do that with a team of round about 9 facilitators who centrally and in the faculties made it possible for courses and modules to go through this. And that was in the run up to the opening of that institution's new campus. We had that kind of notional deadline to do all of that redesign prior to the big move. Many other features of enABLe listed there. It's built around the principles of ABL, of active blended learning, and blended and connected learning, as you will see from the enABLe website and the literature associated with that. It's active, student-centered. We emphasize, as I said, context over content. We place a lot of importance on building a scaffold, building the right sequence of the right activities, rather than creating more content and more content. We can think about blends that consider synchronicity and asynchronicity, rather than just the simplistic view that a blend is the combination of face-to-face and online. Rather than that, it's a lot more complex than that. Blends take multiple shapes, forms, and an online element of a blend is not just a passive thing. An online course needs to be taught just as a face-to-face course does. Otherwise, it's something else. The resource is not the course. And teaching well, again, as a driver for meaningful technology adoption. We will go through this slide probably in various manifestations a number of times throughout the morning, but this captures the key stages in enABLe, and I'm sure Andy in due course will expand on this. But there are three key points here that I want to highlight. The design needs analysis, the DNA meeting, and that's a key part. That's a central part that determines probably a great part of the success of the rest of the process. The design needs analysis, we will describe it a little later in detail, but it is there at the start of the process, followed by the main workshop, which can take half a day or can take a day, and then followed by the review meeting, which is where we look at the action plan and when we consider the next steps. So just as a quick summary of the DNA, that's what we do in the DNA. We identify the expected or desired outcomes for the workshop, identify and describe the target audience, and any gaps that we want to fill. The DNA also addresses a range of possible scenarios for colleagues to address. So, for example, scenario one is your course requires significant attention because it because of an equip flag, or because of student feedback, or because of external examiner feedback, or something else. So in essence, the course exists and needs some amendments, some redesign, and that's scenario one. Scenario two is a refresh around learning and teaching practices, or indeed a particular focus on one component of the module. In this case, the typical example is assessment. And the third scenario is when you have a new idea, a new course or module that you want to put through the lens of the rest of your team, and that is an ideal. enABLe is an ideal way to do that in a collegiate, collaborative, constructive way. The workshop itself is I've just summarized the 6 steps, the 6 stages of the workshop itself. And we're going to go through some of these today. We have an introductory activity and a values based activity. We come up with a mission statement or tweet or strapline. We do learning outcome and assessment review. Activity 4 is probably the most interesting of the lot, in my view, which is the storyboarding exercise around the course or the module. We prototype a number of activities and we use templates for that, which you can, of course, amend and adjust to each context, and we action plan towards the end. Again, Andy and the rest of the team will expand on these things as the morning evolves. The workshop itself can take half a day, it can take a day, and in some cases it can take longer than a day. And I've already had a DNA with one team that expressed a possible interest in doing it over 2 days. It is time well spent. It is an opportunity to talk about your practice, to share that practice with the rest of your team, to bring in students at appropriate times, to bring in other stakeholders such as employers at an appropriate time, and to, in one word, enhance your course. enABLe works at course level and it works at module level. The mechanics of the workshop are a little different between those two, but the principles are the same. Finally, the review meeting is an opportunity to do a follow-up on the work that has been done, and that is a chance to discuss progress, to identify the need, for example, for another workshop or a particular piece of work on one element of the module or course, and other needs that might have arisen. So a lot of information about this is available on the enABLe website, enable.port.ac.uk, which also contains a short video clip, which was developed. It's 1 minute, which was developed for the purposes of giving people an overview of what the process looks like. So it's in essence a summary of what I've just done, but in 1 minute.